All right, good morning, friends. How's everybody today? Hope you're doing well. It's a brand new week, so we'll see what the Lord has for us in this upcoming week and what unfolds in life personally and life in my sphere and life around the world. So, who knows what's taking place? We had a great Sunday yesterday, looking at the end times and the beginning of that, and just marveled at how good God is. So. Man, it's his wrath is coming though, and we should know that. And so we've been looking at that here in Thessalonians, and we just began a new study in at Restoration Gathering, my church I pastor, and so it's going to be really, really, really good. So hope you geared up for the week and ready to rock and roll. And let's just jump into some text. We're finishing up the book of Thessalonians, the first book, our letter, really. And then we're going to jump right into the second letter and continue on. So he's concluded for the moment his study of kind of end times and what is to come because he was answering a question. It's the only reason why he jumped into it. He was answering one of their questions. This section here, the last bit of it, I just kind of call housekeeping and basic principles for living, because that's kind of what he's doing. Now he's just kind of giving a grocery list of things he just wants to see ingrained in their life. This isn't off the cuff. This isn't some random, let me finish up, hey, do this. It's seriously kind of what you say to your kids before you leave them alone in the house, right? Make sure you do this, make sure you do that, or before you're going on a vacation and someone's caring for them maybe, and so you're saying, hey, listen, you make sure you respect Poppy and Nana and do what they say, blah, 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 right? That kind of thing. This is what Paul is saying here in this section. And so we're going to look at the first three verses. He's really talking about church and leadership. And so instead of just rushing through this whole litany of really, really rich things, I thought we'd just take a minute and kind of we'll break some of these things down. So that we get a really good flavor of what should be things that we want to incorporate in our personal lives as members of the body of Christ and as followers of Christ. So Paul has a bias and understands that if you are a Christ follower, you're going to be in a local church. Now, in his day, that's really all there was, the place to gather. You didn't have a choice. Well, I don't like the Thessalonian Baptist Church, or I don't like the First Assembly of God of Thessalonica, or I don't like... There was the church. And so there was really... Now, they may have had multiple house churches, but they were still the church. But it should be understood, and I think I'm saying that to people who believe this as well, that if you're a Christ follower, you will be in a local body of Christ. You have to be. I mean, there's no such thing as, well, I love God, but I don't really go to church. Well, then you're not really loving God the way He would have you, because God desires His people to be a part of the local church. It is His plan. And so I say that lovingly, but those of you who have decided you're not going to be a full-fledged attender regularly at a local body, are dishonoring the Lord in what He wants to do in your life, and you're short-selling the church because the gifts that God's given to you aren't being expressed in that local expression, and so the church is a little less because you're not in it. And so it's important that you do that. I say that up front lovingly, just to remind us that the church is the best hope. Now, I think I heard it said one time that the church is a lot like Noah's Ark. It's full of mess, but it's the only thing floating. And in a sense, that really is true today. Look, it may be full of a lot of stuff, but it's still the only thing that's floating in this world that's going to carry us safely through to the other side. And so this is what he says, and we're just going to look at it. He really is talking to both, in a sense. He's talking to the people, but he's reminding them of their role toward their pastor. And so I've kind of titled this Pastor and People. And so let's just kind of see it unfold, and you'll get the gist of what I'm saying. He says, but we ask you, brothers and sisters, to recognize those who diligently labor among you. Now, we'll just stop there and just look at this for a second. So Paul's saying, listen, man, I'm urging you. I'm asking. Asking there is the word that would have to deal with urge. Like, make this a priority is what he's saying. I'm asking you to make this a priority, brothers and sisters. Now, so I guess what I should say and what needs to be said before we continue jumping in is that the body of Christ, the church, is for the believers in Christ, right? We have gotten that backwards in America where we think the church is about, it's for the unbeliever. And so you have a lot of people who take their services and say, well, it's geared toward the unbelievers. And we have our, time together maybe midweek or whatever. And that's really a foreign concept to the Scriptures. The Scriptures assumes that non-believers are going to move in and out of the church. They're going to show up. People are going to invite them. But the goal isn't to cater to them in that sense any more than you would any other guest that shows up. We're going to be loving and everything else, open and all of that. But the church is about maturing the saints. And then the evangelistic aspect happens as our lives are seen out and about in the community. So when he writes this, he says now, not to, hey, just those who go to church, but to the brothers and sisters. I'm not trying to split hairs, but it's important that we know that, because I think so much has gotten messed up in our society because we have watered down solid teaching of the Word of God to accommodate those that we are afraid that will walk through the door and hear something they don't like and then leave before they ever come to Christ. That's a weak understanding of theology, and it's a weak understanding of the truth of God's Word. We preach to believers, and the unbelievers will hear that. So enough of that. Let's just look at what he says. So what did he say? I ask that you recognize those who diligently labor among you. I think the first thing we see is that you should appreciate the spiritual overseers in the church. God has appointed men to oversee the believers in the church. It is the local expression. They are called God's shepherds, pastors, overseers, bishops. That's the terminology that's used. And Paul says, listen, I want you to appreciate those who are over you in the Lord, to recognize those who diligently labor among you and are in leadership over you in the Lord. Now, at this point, you and me have the privilege of choosing, in some sense, where we go to church, right? So I guess we could look at this way. Look for if you're looking for a church, look for look for the diligent ones, right? Look for the ones where there's a pastor and he's diligent. He says, listen to what he says. They recognize those who diligently labor among you. Now, where is that shepherd? Is he aloof and away, and you don't really get to speak to him? You can kind of see him and hear him, but there's no approachability. Listen, he says that where are they? They are among you, right? They're not some lofty tower somewhere where they're unapproachable. These people are among us. They're one of us in that sense, and so they're approachable. They're real, right? They're diligent in the duties that God's called them to. They do the work, right? They labor among you. They diligently labor among you. So these are not those. So many people think pastors go in the ministry because they can't do anything else, or they're no good at anything. Let me go in the ministry. And in truth, there are some who probably couldn't succeed in the secular world if they tried because they lack just what's necessary. And I say this lovingly as well. There are a lot of pastors that should go back into other work. Just because you want to do something doesn't mean that you've been called to do something. And anyway, that's another story. But they do the work. They diligently labor. They do what it takes to get things done. Right? This is what it means. You want to find a pastor who doesn't just pull out little devotionals, but diligently does the study of things. I am gravitating toward men who don't just regurgitate what someone else taught them, but that they know the Word themselves. They have diligently labored in the Word. They know what it says. That they're a student of people. They understand the nuances of that, and so they know when to be harsh and when to be gentle, and all of those aspects of things. They're diligent, just like a diligent parent, right? Who wants to learn to be a better parent, who knows how to read and listen to his children. This is the kind of shepherd that Paul says, I want you to appreciate. But we ask you, brothers and sisters, to recognize those who diligently labor among you and are in leadership over you. So find the ones who are real and approachable, who do the work. Thirdly, he would say here that understand God's given oversight to them, that they have a responsibility to care for people, to say the things that need to be said, to do the work of parenting, you are a leader, and so you are that. You don't run from leadership. You want a pastor, not one that's arrogant, but one that just understands leadership. A true leader doesn't have to go around telling everybody he's the leader all the time, right? If you have to go around telling everybody you're the leader, reminding everybody you're the leader, you're not the leader, okay? So a leader is one who simply recognizes that God has placed them in a position to love on people and to lead people. Leading and love. That's what a leader does. He loves people upward, and he leads them where they ought to go. And so this is what they do. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes people don't want to do what's right. And sometimes people don't want to do and treat others right. And so a pastor has to step in the middle of that and solve issues. A pastor has to make sure, like you do your children, you can't just put your head in the sand and go, they're just boys, they just fight. No. That's not what they do. And as a pastor, your pastor should be a leader. He should say, no, we're going to deal with these things. Listen, I've had to deal with some hard stuff before that I don't like having to deal with. But you have to if you care about the church. So we've had people come in and they try to teach things that aren't true. I've had to stand in the doorway and let these people know you're not welcome here, and here's why, right? Because I have a responsibility to protect the sheep and my people, rather, from untruth and from error, because a little leaven leavens a whole lump. And so it's a part of what leadership is all about. Then he says, and give you instruction. So here's the deal. They teach you. They teach the scriptures. This is a good pastor. This is what you should be looking for. One that's real and approachable. One that does the work. One that gives that takes on the role of leadership and is that loving, diligent parent, so to speak. And their instruction isn't just whimsically based on what they think. It's not their truth. There's one truth. It's the Lord's truth. The instruction that we give is what the Lord requires. And that's the kind of pastor that you're looking for. Know them and appreciate them, then, he says. Are in leadership, O Lord, and give instruction, and that you regard them very highly in love because of their work, right? So once you find that kind of pastor, you know and appreciate them, right? That word "know" is oida. It's the same word that we use, and I don't mean this in any kind of sexual way, but it's the same word we use when we said that Adam knew Eve, right? There is that. It's an intimate. That's what this knowledge is. There's an intimate knowledge about them, and sometimes I don't have a lot of conversation with some of the people that I have preached and pastored over the years, but they'll always say things like, man, I just feel like I know you because you're real. Well, that's because what I preach in the pulpit is the same thing I live everywhere else. And you will hear me talk about my faults, and you'll hear me sometimes I'm probably going to give you too much information about my life. That is the role of a pastor, so that he is known, right? And that should be. So when you find one that you know, whether you know them like intimately, personally, but you know them, then appreciate them. Appreciate what's going on in their life. Now, that word appreciate, and I don't mean this in any way about my people, but that word appreciate, Paul used the same thing to Timothy, and he means that in terms of appreciate them by giving them money, by not making them go to work and labor in the fields, because they can have time to labor among you as well. And so, if you find a good pastor like that, make sure he's taken care of, right? Make sure he's got the ability to meet the needs of his family. And then it says, what does it say? And love them deeply, right? Regard them very highly in love, right? To love deeply. Now, and I think the same thing happens in church that should happen in a marriage. There's what Tammy and I call the 80-20 rule, right? We're perfectly imperfect. It tends to be in marriage that you begin to look at the 20% of that mate that you don't like, and you ignore the 80% of them that is really, really good. And at some point, you get to where you can't even see the 80 because all you've done is focus on the 20. There's a lot of irritants that you can have when you have a pastor, right? He can do a lot of things that just irritate you. But if they're not unbiblical and they're just quirky things, then you lay those aside, because love covers a multitude of sins. You look at the 80% and go, you know what? I'm gonna love them. I'm gonna quit looking for perfection. Just love them. That's the responsibility that you should have there. And then there's this attitude of respect. Why are you loving them? Because of their work. You respect the fact that they have done the work to bring you good truth in a way that is clear and understandable and can explain it to you. And that they're passionate about seeing that you understand it so that you can grow. And they're passionate about showing you how the body should function together. When they're doing that kind of work, when they're visiting the sick and they're helping you learn how to take care of the poor and all of those things and equipping you, appreciate those people. Appreciate that, Pastor. And then lastly, and this is kind of a hinge from this to the next scenario, but it fits with this. It seems to be grammatically attached to this. And he says, live in peace with one another. And so here's the thing, be a peacemaker with your pastor. Listen, the worst thing you can do is stir up trouble and create sides and issues. And have you ever been, doesn't that turn your stomach a little bit when you're in a church and everybody's wanting you to side against the pastor or for the pastor or whatever? Why does it have to be that way? Why can't we just live in peace with one another, right? Why can't we just be patient and gentle and forbearing, which are the marks of those who want to walk worthy of the call that God's called all of us to, that we would be those things. And so, listen, don't be a troublemaker in your church. Live in peace with one another. All right? Hey, that's my word for you today that comes right from the Scriptures. Tomorrow, we're going to look at how we deal with troublemakers and all of that, not necessarily in the church, just among each other. And what do you do with people who are always just creating havoc and drama? We're going to look at that tomorrow. All right, man. You guys have a great day, and Lord willing, I'll see you in the morning.